Yo, what's going on, guys? Once more NHL 17 here in the background, but today we're going to be discussing who we think is going to be winning that Rookie of the Year honors Calder Memorial Cup trophy this year in the NHL. And it's not just going to be my opinions. I was fortunate enough to get BestNHLClips in another vid with me today. So if you guys remember, I did a video with him not too long ago. We both really enjoyed doing it. Got some good feedback from you guys. So if you guys haven't already, go and check out BestNHLClips channel will be down in the description below. If you guys have any other topics you'd like to hear us discuss as well, feel free to shoot us a message down in the comment section. Other than that, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. I must say, though, we are, Blue Jackets Leafs fans over here, so might have a little bit to do with who's being named in our discussion, but we're going to try to name a few other guys as well. You being a Leafs fan and me not being a Leafs fan, I'm very against Auston Matthews being Rookie of the Year. I actually got a couple guys I had in mind. Obviously, one of them was WERENSKI, but then I actually thought we could talk maybe a little bit about Matt Murray or Patrik Laine. Matt Murray's probably the least likely one, I'd have to say, because of the fact that he's doing great, 2.35 goals against average, 24 wins, but he's only played 38 games all year.
I am completely on the same boat as you with Matt Murray. Not as much Laine, a little bit Laine. Not as much Werenski, but I'm on boat with the whole Matt Murray thing because I personally believe if he was to have another playoff run like he did last year and win it all, he should probably take the Calder if he wins another cup with this team.
Now that you bring that up, it's a great question. Do you think that you should consider the way a guy plays in the playoffs as part of them winning a trophy?
I totally think you should. Now I think, okay, let's get into this because the Calder Memorial Trophy is to the most proficient player in their first year in the NHL. So, that's not just season. So, if you're good enough to lead your team into the playoffs and you do well in the playoffs, I think that should be considered.
But see, I don't like it because what if you're first overall pick and you're on a terrible team? You can't help it. You could score 85 points that year and they still miss the playoffs. And it's not your fault you're not in the playoffs. So, I think it's unfair that you actually judge them by their playoff performance. Same with the MVP.
I think a great rookie player can make their team great, or at least close to being in a playoff position. You don't think they considered it with Panarin?
Oh.
Or look at McDavid this year. Now he's a sophomore, don't get me wrong, but you can't tell me that he's not the sole reason Edmonton's doing well. So I mean, I 100% would take the playoffs into consideration on this. I believe they do. Now, then again, I'm not on the inside, but if I was to have a stud of a player, such as Connor McDavid or Auston Matthews, and he actually does something good enough to this team from bringing them to last place up into either a playoff spot or almost a playoff spot, I think that's proficient enough throughout the whole season and the playoffs to win them a Calder.
But I couldn't understand where you're coming at here. Now that I get to talk about Werenski a little bit here, his record since you want to count the AHL playoffs, NHL is like 60-20 or something ridiculous. There was 9-1 last year in the AHL. They won the Calder Cup. I think they went like 12-1, something ridiculous. And then the way the Blue Jackets been playing this year compared to last year, he's definitely a big impact on that team being plus 17. That's best amongst rookies, by the way. And one thing I wanted to ask, I had to throw that in there. One thing I want to talk about here is where do you draw the line at? Because I know people make the argument about, Auston Matthews, it's a points race to who wins the Calder Cup. Werenski's 6th amongst point scorers for rookies. Where do you draw the line between forwards and defensemen when you're starting to look at, obviously a defenseman's not going to lead the league in points as a rookie?
Okay, first things first. I want to get the whole fucking points thing out of here. I think it should be to the overall best, most high caliber player in the rookie season. I think it should go to the player who displays the most amount of talent, the most amount of efficiency for their team in their role, not the person who gets the most points. I was actually really pissed off when Panarin won it last year because I believe McDavid should have won it regardless of if he was injured or not, because we all know McDavid's a better player. And don't get me wrong, Panarin's good, and he's proven he's good, and it has nothing to do with age here. It's all in the fact that I believe McDavid 100% is the stronger player, and everybody knows he is. So why didn't he win it? But getting back to that, if I'm looking at defense, and if you look at the whole Ekblad situation, winning the Calder and so on and so forth, I believe any rookie defenseman who can put up 30 points and play shutdown defense, 100% should be in consideration, at least in talk. And that's in the rookie year. 30 points as a rookie defenseman, if that's not a lot to you, I don't know. But 30 points is kind of where I put it.
That year, Ekblad, actually, he dropped 39 points as well, because I was looking, did some research on this, just in case. I had to get my Werenski case going here. And that was the same year Gaudreau and Forsberg came into the league, and Ekblad actually took it over them. It was a couple years now, but you'd think a lot of guys were like, that should have been Johnny Gaudreau's thing, but Ekblad actually played solid defense, put up some points for the Panthers in his rookie year to actually win the trophy.
Exactly. So that's the argument I'd make. Now, is Werenski on that level, though? I mean, when you're comparing him as... If you look at Werenski as a game-changing player, if you put him across all of Columbus, is he providing enough of an impact on that team that they are where they are right now? Don't get me wrong, he's a great defenseman, but when in comparison to Matthews or Laine or even Marner or Murray, is Werenski on the level that he should be considered? Is he changing the game that much for Columbus?
Well, let me say this then with those numbers out here. First of all, like I said, he leads all of rookies in plus minus. He's tied for first in power play points, which obviously he's making a big impact then as a defender, tied in power play points. But the thing that people don't really think about it a lot is this guy's playing first line defensive minutes. He's going up against the other team's best player day in, day out. And I guess people don't look at that a lot because, like I said, a plus 17 first line defenseman on a team like the Blue Jackets is still really good, considering we're not like an offensive powerhouses. That plus 17 ain't because we're dropping 5 goals a night. He's just playing good hockey defensively.
That's true. Now, he's putting up points. He's getting a plus minus. He's doing all that good stuff. How do you throw him into comparison with somebody like Laine, Matthews, or Marner?
Well,
where do you put the comparison? What is he doing for his team that maybe these guys aren't?
I think the defense
aren't they all
is a
doing
big
the same
impact.
thing?
I mean, you're looking at guys like Marner, Matthews, Laine. They're going to help your team a lot offensively. But so is Werenski. First of all, he's helping the team tremendously offensively. That's why we're one of the best power play units in the league, because he's out there manning the point for those power plays. But when you consider how bad our defense was making mistakes last year, yes, we have a lot of young defenders that are still growing, but the big impact that he's had on the team defensively, plus Bob's been playing great. You can't get that wrong. But he's been having such a big impact on the defense this year. It's hard to say that he isn't a big game changer for the Blue Jackets, and that's the reason they're at where they're at right now. And of these three guys, the Blue Jackets are the best team out of all of them. And they were all, you can argue all three of these teams were cellar dwellers last year. The Leafs a little bit more than the Blue Jackets and the Jets, but we was all terrible teams last year. So we're all coming from, the same sort of background.
But other than the Jets just actually being shit and not being young last year, how far along the rebuild do you think Columbus is compared to, say, the Leafs? Now, the Jets are a young team too, don't get me wrong, and they have players like Scheifele and all that coming up who are unbelievable and definitely contributing to that. But as opposed to rebuild level and the amount of players, Werenski gets to play with NHL-ready players. You look at someone like Matthews, he's playing on a line with Zach Hyman and Connor Brown all year long. If he wasn't on that line, these two players probably wouldn't be having their rookie seasons or even be in talk. Like, are they truly NHL players without Matthews? I love these guys. I'm a Leafs fan, but how many players have this kind of rookie season without star wingers to play along? I mean, Laine's playing with Scheifele and Ehlers, if I'm correct. And then
at this moment,
Matthews, he's with nobodies and he's doing this.
But I do have a question now. Let's clear this up real quick. Is he still playing with Brown and Hyman, or is it Hyman and
Nylander?
Nylander, yeah.
Recently, very, very recently, Hyman and Nylander. And that's because Brown's been moved onto the Nylander line from before. But for a good chunk of, say, 55 games, he has played with Hyman and Brown as long as they're healthy and in the lineup.
Now, let me get something straight here. Understand Hyman. Hyman and Perrault, I think they're on the same level, just kind of out there for moral support, I guess. But Brown, was he not, or was he a solid 40, 50 point scorer before this season? Am I right about that, or am I completely wrong?
Connor Brown's never played in the NHL before this season, other than a couple of games at the end of last year.
Oh, that's what it was. I'm thinking of somebody else, 40, 50 points guy. That's right. You're right.
Connor Brown was a late round gem. Toronto got him. Actually, he played in Erie with McDavid, and he won the OHL Player of the Year and everything. Got drafted as a late round gem the year before that by the Leafs in the 5th round, and he ended up getting a whole bunch of points up in the AHL, and he's basically been just a diamond in the rough for the Leafs kind of deal. But no, this is his first actual full season. This is his rookie season.
But see, here's one thing I can't talk much about. I don't know if you can, because I don't watch the Jets play. Was Patrik Laine playing with Scheifele all year, or was that, kind of like the Matthews thing? Obviously, it wasn't 50 games, but he played 20, 30 games with other guys, and then finally they moved Scheifele down to the same line as Laine.
As far as I know, he's always been with Laine, but then again, I follow it. I try and follow it closely. I don't follow it like some of your Winnipeg fans, my Winnipeg fans might. So I can't hold true to that comment. But I definitely can put out there that he's playing with NHL caliber and NHL ready players who have already proven that and are going to improve his game.
But see, I think we're touching on this a little bit, so let's dig a little bit deeper on your thoughts. Because my thoughts, honestly, I think your line has a little bit to do with it, but at the same time, you still have to be a great player, in my opinion, to put up a point per game on any line. Do you think lines should be considered when you're thinking of how good of a player's production is?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Panarin, he's a great player, but do you think he would have put up the points he did coming into the league last year if he wasn't playing with Patrick Kane?
Right, but you could also look at, I don't even know who played center for him last year, but I know Anisimov is playing center for him this year. He started out like a house of fire, but he's well under a point per game now. Centering those two guys. Panarin's still playing great, Anisimov nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's true. He has the experience now too, though, right? He's not a rookie anymore. Now, he's not a veteran. He's an older guy too. Age could maybe play a part of that. He's played professional hockey in another league, but I think he's already figured out this NHL caliber hockey, and I think that attributes to his second year in the NHL going so well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking the exact same thing you're thinking. No, that's why I want to talk about the whole lines thing. A lot of guys are like, look who Laine's playing with compared to look who Matthews is playing with. But that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about like how you thought about that. And I was actually looking at some of Scheifele's numbers. Until this year, he never scored more than 61 points, which is great. He's, progressing. He's still young, of course. That's why it's still kind of low. But he's on pace to score 80 this year. Can't you? At some point, you have to like point fingers and say Laine is attributing to him doing great as much as Scheifele is attributing to him doing great.
Oh, I think they're attributing to each other 100%. I think Scheifele had a great season last year too, and Scheifele's another amazing prospect. He's just had a couple years to develop already. I think they're attributing just as well to each other, but I believe there's players such as, now, don't get me wrong, I am not saying Matthews is the same caliber as McDavid or Crosby or any of those kind of players, but there's players who make those around him better, like Matthews, on a lower caliber, but still like Matthews and McDavid and Crosby. And then there's players that play well together with others. Okay, now it doesn't mean they can't play well on their own, but they do play better with certain players. And those players feed off each other, where players who I believe, like what Matthews is, can make everybody around him better and doesn't need others to prove himself.
Oh, I completely understand. Like, you think of how, when Kessel first came to the Penguins, how terrible he wasn't producing playing with star players. He was, one of those guys just like that. They don't play well. Can you almost look at that as like a downside? Do they have to play by themselves with other bad players? They have to be the guy, controlling the zone. You can look at that as a good thing. You look at it as a bad thing, I guess. But, that's why Kessel's playing on a third line.
That's actually a really interesting topic to dig down deeper, if they have to play on their own or not. Because, I mean, you think about how many star players and star wingers they've tried to pick up for Crosby and how it hasn't worked out. But he always produces. So that's interesting, too. I mean, that's quite the argument. Now, this is a horrible comparison, but it actually kind of works. When it comes down to Crosby or Ovechkin every time, Crosby ends up winning the title. And now Ovi has a great team, great players, and is an amazing goal scorer. But what wins? The all-around player or the goal scorer?
Right. I understand. I'm completely with you on that. I'd go with the all-around player. I think the all-around players help the goal scorers. You look at you look at Ovechkin, I can get in some big trouble for talking about Ovechkin because I think he's a little bit overrated for the fact that you look how he's playing this year compared to years past. He sits there in that slot, wide open, taking shots for days at the power play. I mean, you can say he gets open, but nobody's covering him on the power play. If you shoot 300 times a year from there, eventually you're going to put some goals in the back of the net. But you look at Backstrom this year, he's having a better season than Ovechkin. And then I was looking at Oshie's number.
Yep.
Oshie's going to be on pace to score 55, 60 points, just like he has every single year with the Blues. And then you talk about guys playing with good players. Oshie's an example of a guy that went from, I don't know who he played with on the Blues, if he played with Tarasenko there for a little bit or not. I'm completely over my head on that, but I know he's playing with really good players now, and his production hasn't went up. And you can, you can bring the argument up about just because they're playing with good players doesn't mean they're going to be a great player. Their line doesn't make the player kind of argument deal.
I think you just confirmed my whole argument on the Matthews Laine situation. That's what I think.
That's all right. I don't think Laine needs to win the Calder Cup. I think I need to convince you that Werenski's going to win it, but
all right, but I'm just saying we at least got rid of one candidate there.
I don't know. I'm still on the fan side of Laine, honestly, but that's just me. You have to do some more talking me out of it.
I get you. No, it makes sense. All right, but let's get into this a little bit deeper with Werenski then. If you're considering Werenski as a Calder Cup player, then, or a Calder Trophy winner, sorry. Now, right now, as you said, he's a plus 17. He's doing great on the power play, all that kind of good stuff. Why don't we consider Brady Seacatch then for the New York Rangers? 31 points. He's plus 14. Okay, he has 10 power play points. He's on the Rangers. He's attributing to helping them win. Very similar stats as Werenski. Little bit less, don't get me wrong. But right there, if we're considering rookie defenseman.
But where's this guy play? I feel like the Rangers have, dare I say it, a better team
it's a second line
around.
defense.
Yeah, second line. That's a big deal. Second line to first line is a big deal. But I think he's got a little bit better of a team around him than Werenski does as far as defense is concerned, and older guys that can kind of be the leader. The Blue Jackets defense is a bunch of young guys. Werenski's got to be a part of being a leader on that team.
That's true. I get you. But is he?
Of course he is.
Now, other than the stats, I can't say from experience because I only watch the Leafs primarily, so I only get to see Columbus when they're playing the Leafs. But is he bringing everybody up around him the way he should be as a leader would and as a player deserving of the Calder?
I think he is. I think it's one of those things. It's hard to call. I even had a hard time with McDavid last year, calling the guy a leader, the guy that just came onto the team as a rookie, giving him that leadership status quo. I always think that's something you kind of have to earn over the years. So it's kind of hard for me to go out there and say, like, he's the leader of the team, but I think he definitely does make a big impact on everybody else on that team. To call him the leader right away, I don't know if I'd go that far with any rookie.
So to say Seacatch isn't quite there because he has other leaders playing on his team, do you think if they gave him the opportunity to play first line and get the extra ice time that Werenski does, he might have those extra 8 points and a couple plus minus to get up where he is?
I think if he was...
Or do you think Werenski's just a stronger defenseman? Do you think the play time and the players on his team make that difference to prevent him from being a part of the talk?
I think if he was a first-line defenseman, Seacatch that is, they'd put him there. They ain't holding him down from being a first-line defenseman on a team. If he's good enough, he'd earn his spot in there. Just like, Matthews and Laine, Werenski, you can argue they somewhat worked their way up in the lines. I mean, they've always had the big name thing. They're obviously not, I'm not going to sit there and say they was doghousing him on the fourth and third lines, but you just don't throw a young guy in the first line, the first game of the year most of the time. And they have to prove themselves to come up, and that's what Werenski did, is he proved himself. Now he's playing on the first line with Seth Jones. I want to say he was second, third line material to start the year. Not material, but that's where they had him kind of deal. So he earned his spot to be on that first line.
That's a good point. I'm with you on that. Definitely with you on that. Now, how does Jones affect Werenski overall? What difference do you think it makes that Werenski plays with Jones rather than on one of the lower lines with somebody else?
Well, that's interesting.
Because I believe Jones is such an elite caliber defenseman too that he could definitely attribute to Werenski's success over there.
That's interesting because you can look at that as both ways. You can go back to that Johansson-Jones trade where both teams probably kind of thought like, we think we have an elite player, but they're not proving it to us this year. Neither one of them had the greatest, Johansson and Jones last year, greatest seasons. You could argue was a little bit of a disappointment, but you could look at it and say, look what Johansson's still doing this year. And then you look at what Jones is doing. You could say Werenski's got a big part in Jones's success this year.
Similar to the Mathews situation, I guess, bringing up the players around him. That's true, because Jones didn't have a great season last year, so is Werenski a part of his good season? That's a good point, actually, too. I don't know, man. If I was to narrow it down, after everything we've talked about, if I was to narrow this down, you can't take Laine completely out of the talk. He's point per game. He has 32 goals. I personally believe that he's in the talk, but I don't think he wins it. I believe Werenski's in the talk because he's having a better year defensively than Ekblad had when he won it. Arguably, as long as he keeps going at the rate he's going. And Mathews is definitely in the talk. So is Matt Murray, as long as we take all that into consideration. Now, the one thing I will add into this, into the whole Auston Matthews, Laine, maybe over Werenski situation, is they're setting records in the rookie year, man. Laine, most ever hat tricks. Matthews, most goals in a debut. Both of them on the current players that are in the NHL, the two of them at 60 games played roughly are both over 30 goals. And the only other active NHL players to do that in their rookie year are Crosby, Ovechkin, and Skinner. And what's that say with 20 goals left? And Skinner barely got it, but what's that say with 20 games left when, we all know the rookie season and the rookie battle that Ovechkin and Ovi had.
That shows
Ovechkin and Crosby.
That shows how strong these last 2 years draft class has been. That's what, because I think you look at these three guys and you look at that Ekblad year, or you looked at that McKinnon year, and you could say all three of these guys would have beat them guys out for the Calder Cup. You could almost argue, but it's just such a strong rookie year this year. It's a toss-up between all of them. I wouldn't call it a toss-up. People will say Mathews and Laine over Werenski, but I'll call it a toss-up.
Now, since that rookie year with Crosby and Ovechkin, would you say this is arguably the strongest rookie year going forward?
I would say, why exactly? How can you argue against it? You look at Matt Murray, future elite goalie, you're going to have to say. You look at Werenski, future elite defenseman, and undoubtedly the two Laine, Mathews, elite forwards. And then Nylander's technically, he's still under his rookie year too, is he not?
Yeah, and he's got 45 points in 63 games and 20 power play points.
Right, I think he's going to be a good player as well. That's why when I was talking about him on Matthews' line.
Is Marner a part of this topic at all? Do you think Marner's, assist-wise, he has 35 assists on the year. Now, Werenski also has 30 as a defenseman too, so that's great. But he has 50 points in 59 games.
Oh, yeah.
He's third in the
Marner, actually, if there was a fifth guy, I don't know. I lost count how many guys we talked about now. If he was the fifth guy, he'd be the fifth guy in line, I think. Like, when I was looking at talking Rookie of the Year, I thought Marner, he's making a name for himself just as well. I think the Leafs need to share some of their players a little bit, honestly.
With the records and the trend that Laine and Mathews have kind of set with their goal-scoring habits and the extras they've put into this Calder topic conversation, does that give them an edge over Werenski at all, do you think?
That's a tough question. I think it's tough because we're talking forwards to defensemen here. It's the comparison between the two is what makes it tough for me. The only thing I can throw out there is Werenski's going to lead the franchise as far as a rookie's most points in a year over Rick Nash, but we've been around for like 20 years, so it's not really an accomplishment at the same time.
That's true. But still, defensively, as a defensive player, he is definitely putting up a hell of a season. So if you were to rank the top 5 rookies in order.
No, okay, go ahead. Continue. I was going to fire this one at you before you could fire it at me, but go ahead.
Okay. No, hey, this is going to be your video. You go for it. All right. It's all you, man.
All right. See, all right, no. So who's going first? We're going to have to debate now. Who's going first? You want me to go first? I'll go first. I don't care.
I'll give you this one.
Yeah.
You can ask me it.
Oh, I gotta ask you? Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's a trophy. You can ask me.
Save some upset fans for, after I let you give your choice here. All right, so you got 5. I was going to do top 3. You want to do top 5? 5's fine. Your top 5.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Let's hear
with
it. 5-1 on Rookie of the Year this year.
All right. 5-1. So, putting in at number 5, just to bug you a little bit, I'm going with Werenski.
Oh, I did it.
I did it, and I know you probably have a bunch of Columbus fans over there to back you up on this, but it's just, as good as he is, I don't think there's enough compared to some of the other guys on the list. And now, I have my own biases because I am a Leafs fan, but that's what I'm going with number 5. Now, number 4, I'm going with Mitch Marner. Now, he's had his own argument behind his case, and some people have considered him above Matthews and Laine, and others not, but he's up there. There's an argument for that. Number 3, I am going to have to go with Patrik Laine. And now I know number 3 instead of number 2, that might be an interesting topic, but he's point per game. He's a true goal scorer, probably the best goal scorer to come into the league since Ovi. I mean, I'd put him even above Tarasenko going forward. Now, it's arguable with Stamkos and so forth with his injuries, whatever. But he's a true goal scorer. But he doesn't play both ways. And that's my argument with Matthews. So number 2, I'm going to have to give Matt Murray. As long as he continues out the rest of this season the way he is, I think he's the most underdog, not given enough credit prospect on this list, Matt Murray, especially if they go deep into the playoffs, and he's pretty much running this team. I know he hasn't had a crazy amount of starts, but they also have Fleury over there. You can't let the flower die. So, I mean, that adds to it. And then at number 1, with my biases in, I'll go with Auston Matthews. And I think it's the offensive aspect, but it's also the defensive aspect. This guy plays 2 ways. It's been proven in and out. Everybody knows he's a 2-way kind of player. But my main thing is he makes the team different. He plays with players who aren't full NHL players yet, and he's proven that he can run a team and be a franchise caliber player. And that's why I'm doing my top 5 the way I am.
All right, so one thing I didn't bring up, and I actually did want to talk about, was how much of an effect do you think the media has on this stuff? Because you look at Auston Matthews, Toronto, one of the biggest fan bases around. You look at Matt Murray, Penguins. You look at, I don't even know who, Patrik Laine, Winnipeg. They have a pretty good fan base themselves too, but then you consider the draft. Matthews was taken first overall. That already, people are already looking at guys like that. And then you look at Werenski, little dinky Columbus Blue Jackets fan base, drafted 8th overall. Guys, they come in with hype just like McDavid. You go in there and you expect these guys to be fantastic, and you just look for reasons to compliment them and, agree with your first opinion of them being fantastic. Do you think that actually plays into the effect at all when people think of best player that's a rookie that year?
I think it has a huge effect, to tell you the truth. Now, a lot of rookies will back that up, but the thing is, I also think it plays a huge effect coming into the criticism that these guys get, because whatever player goes first is usually hated by fans around the league, or especially the fans with the second round or second overall pick. The Winnipeg-Toronto rivalry is now a thing. And just from the hate I see on Matthews from Winnipeg, I see just as much from every other team in the league. So I think the criticism also adds to it, but they definitely do hype up the prospects coming in if you're that number 1 pick or the number 2 pick or on a bigger market scheme. I don't think Columbus gets the coverage to really have their players as far into the talk as they probably should. So I 100% believe that does have an effect on it. I'm with you if you are on that same side.
I am on that same side. I am indeed. I like to hear this. I like to hear this a lot.
But I definitely do believe that it also grabs the negatives out of them too. They're looking to pick apart any little thing that they do. So not only is their best moments showcased and hyped up, but so are their worst, right? Like, who's ever going to forget Laine scoring that beauty on his own net, right?
That's right.
Does that come up at the Calder talk? I mean, maybe, right? nobody's ever gonna forget. Now that's a big fuck up, but I mean the little things too. They'll showcase all the little things.
Right, so does that make it my turn here? Do I got to go 5 through 1?
Yeah, let me hear your 5 through 1. I want to know your thoughts on this.
Okay, well, there is bias. There's a lot of bias involved here, but let's see. I'm thinking.
Well, we're Columbus and Toronto fans.
This is true. Considering the 4 players I actually mentioned, that would mean I still think Marner is that 5th player. I think he could easily work his way in higher up in the rookie thing if he just keep playing, really good at a high level. But right now I see him at number 5. I wish I could put him higher, but I can't. The problem is with Matt Murray, you look at just like the reason McDavid didn't win it last year, because he didn't play enough. Matt Murray is in that same role, only playing 38 games this year. I think if they let him play all year, like you said, you can't let the flower die. If they let him play all year, he's almost in that conversation of the Vezina, dropping a .925 save percentage on the season. But because he hasn't played all year, you can't even. It's hard to consider him playing Rookie of the Year as well. And then number 3, we're cutting hairs here. I never really thought of this one really hard, I guess. I just thought Werenski number 1.
Oh. Cutting right to the chase, okay.
I'm going to do it, though. Oh, man, I'm doing it. Mathews.
Don't do it.
Mathews
Put the
number
scissors
3.
Away. No.
As much as,
How
first of all, you know what I have written down here? He's a +4 on here, Mr. Defensive both ways. But 31 goals, 24 assists. That's great. First of all, one thing a lot of people haven't mentioned yet, and this is a great fact. He's got 475 more faceoff losses than Laine on the season. Is that a fair judgment?
Well, Laine's a winger.
Wow. These guys don't know that, right?
If there's somebody who takes that stat out of this video and uses it for their deciding factor, I quit. I'm done, man.
Could you imagine?
That's the deal breaker. That's what it's gonna come down to.
Yeah, and then plus I'm probably, I'm on that criticism hater side of Mathews, I guess. I just want to see him fail secretly or something, so I got him at 3. And then I got Patrik Laine at number 2. He leads every rookie in goals, first of all. The guy's shooting 20% on you. I don't care who's on your line. 20% is a phenomenal shooting percentage for a guy. 46 even strength goals. He's not putting it on the power play. Again, he's doing it even strength. I think that's a factor that people don't really consider a lot of. I don't know if you want to call it a good thing or a bad thing. Some people argue it's actually a bad thing because it's like, well, you're not producing on a power play.
Well, he's undoubtedly one of the best shooters in the league. Nobody can deny that. I mean, he's 2nd in the league in goal scoring right now. Mathews 3rd, Crosby 1st. But I mean, 20%. That's, you have one hell of a shot, right? You got to compare this guy in caliber of shot to Ovi and Stamkos and those kind of players. He has that kind of shot. I'll give him that.
Right. And crazy thing is, what is Ovi? Ovi's been shooting like 12 or 13%. It's been down the last couple years, actually. I think I don't know what he's shooting this year. I couldn't tell you.
This will be a weak year for him. Actually, pulling him into this conversation, he's not having a terrible year. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, he's not getting 50 goals this year. I doubt it. It'll be interesting to see. Now, the fall off is only going to be so much, though. He's already put himself in the Hall of Fame. He's had a Hall of Fame career already, so I'm not thinking he's too concerned.
Right, you don't make the Hall of Fame from 35 on. No, nobody ever looks at how bad you did at the end of the year. All these guys do terrible their last couple of years. Look how Yager's falling out, but he's like 79 years old too, so it's a little bit different.
Oh, could you imagine the point per game average that they'd have if they dropped out when they're still getting 120
right.
points?
Go Chuck. Sorry, Devils fans.
Yeah.
Hope they didn't last that long in the video. They're not gonna like that one.
No, definitely not. Hey, it's a lot of free cap space. Good thing you used it once.
Right. All right, so here we are, number 1. We are, number 1. Zach, the grade 8, Werenski. We have a grade 8 on offense. Now we got a grade 8 on defense. As we already mentioned, 39 points, 6 most. Who cares points? I know it gets forwards, defense, rookies. People like to compare points. They like to compare lines they're playing with. But I think, like we've already talked about, he goes underlooked because he's on a Columbus Blue Jackets. I'd be willing to bet if he was on a team like, the Leafs, Montreal, playing defense like he is, he'd be at the top of that discussion. But instead, he's the under-the-radar type of guy that people don't take into account how big of a flip the Blue Jackets have made from one year to the next. Again, you said, these guys can become NHL ready and stuff. The Blue Jackets have been a notoriously young team for the last few years. But it ain't a coincidence that they just all of a sudden turned it around from last year to the next. When Werenski came and played defense for them, like I said, plus 17, first amongst all guys. You talked about guys that are two-way. Auston Matthews, two-way. Werenski, two-way. But Werenski's on defense. I think, like I said, I think that first line defense definitely makes a big impact on when you consider the fact that he's playing against the top line guys on every team. Hashtag Werenski for Norris. I got him at number 1.
Good to know the difference. I will give you it. I believe Werenski is definitely in the talk. Although, if you add up everything, I'd still put Matthews over Laine.
I understand Matthews over Laine, and then you'd have Werenski over them too. I got it.
Well, I mean, if you changed your list and put Matthews at number 2, maybe I could forgive you a little. But yeah, definitely an interesting topic, though. I'm glad to know your opinion on it. I'm sure everybody else has a different opinion. We're going to get torn to shreds. They're going to be commenting fucking Ivan Provorov for Norris and Calder. But
oh, dear.
Sorry, Philly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry we didn't bring you up. Not really.
But, everybody's going to... Oh, fuck. Vancouver fans. Troy Stetcher.
Jesus.
Get out of my comments. Get out of the comments. Vancouver fans are the most vocal fans in the world, man.
I hear about Bo Horvat on a daily, I think. You think he was Crosby or something, I swear. Do those team of the week prediction videos. Horvat? Yeah, he had 2 points this week. Maybe next week.
We gotta cut this one off before we just get everybody
All right, so you got anything else? Is that all we got to add?
We'll agree to disagree on this
All
one.
right, we'll agree to disagree. We both think Werenski's the greatest. Other than that, guys, who do you guys think should be Rookie of the Year this year? Let us know. Don't forget to toss Best NHL Clips over here a subscribe, follow, whatever you want to call it, as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.